This is the boat ramp at Lee's Ferry, and it represents both the end of a very, very long wait. In our case, it was 13 years from the time we applied for the permit until we made it to the ramp, and it also represents the end of almost a year of organization and planning, getting the group together. The load that we have is for 16 people for 16 days, so when we get afloat, we got a long way to go. The Grand Canyon is about, or the stretch we do is about 225 miles. There are 85 named rapids, but despite that, most of the Grand Canyon is flat. It's largely long stretches of flat water with pool rapids. As you look downstream, this is the overview at Nankoweap. And one of the problems that you have with the Grand Canyon is that scale is difficult. If you see where the river turns off to the right, you're looking almost 5 miles downstream. So the quantity of stuff that you have to deal with is very large. One of the major things that's with the Grand Canyon, obviously, is water, but it's not only the main stem river. The geology of the Grand Canyon is active with springs and rivers and seeps. And it tends to be central not only to what you see, but also everything that you do. Even where the water is not there right now, it dictates the landscape that's accessible to you. The Grand Canyon away from water is at best inhospitable, and at worst it's completely inaccessible. Every once in a while, if you're lucky, you come to a place like Little Colorado River, which is a gem. It's a travertine stream. It runs underwater or underground for most of the time, and then it comes out, and it's a spectacular blue that runs into the main stem of the river. The little boat, we'll skip ahead. But water is not always benign. This was a flash flood that we ran into on the second one of our trips, and it gives you the sense that geology is not just the slow process of erosion, it's actually a brisk and active process. When you get downstream from Marble Canyon, which is where we've been, we run into the granite, and the canyon starts to close in. The beaches are fewer, it's darker, you don't get the sun as much. It's the sense that the canyon is really getting going at this point. After almost 90 miles, you come to the first sign of modern civilization, which is the steel bridge that goes across to Phantom Ranch, which is a hike-in camp at the bottom. And one of the interesting things when you get to Phantom is that you figure out that in just the few days that you've been on the river, your trip has developed a culture with the group that you come in. After Phantom, the river gets going. This is one of the big rapids. This is Hermit. And on the left-hand side, you see the boulders from Hermit Creek that get washed in during a flood. And so what happens is the boulders wash in, they wash down, so the river's dynamic. Even if you do it several times, it changes each time. Unfortunately, things don't always go as planned. We actually had a boat go over on our last trip. It's a production because the boats, when they're loaded up, are close to a ton of gear and stuff like that, and it's a measure of how well you pack. The guy who flipped this one managed to put everything in place except for a tube of chapstick. In this picture, this is a great piece of geology, even though it doesn't really look like it. On the right-hand side, you can see just a little bit of sedimentary rock laid down, and then you see some granite beneath it. And that's the great unconformity. It's 1 billion years of history in a gap there. Then you get downstream and you get to Deer Creek Falls. If you've ever wanted to play in a 150-foot waterfall, this is the place. We can hike up to the top of Deer Creek Falls, and we can walk in the slot canyon that's above it. And for parents, this is a fantastic place for kids because not only it gives you the opportunity to see what your kids are able to do, and you know, the takeaway is that they're a lot more capable than we give them credit for sometimes. This is just a quick view of what camp is like, and camps differ depending on where you're on the river, but basically all of them have a kitchen, a sitting area, and then you can see somebody's very sophisticated camp laid out, the little green mat on the right. we don't tend to go very hard. So this is another view of a slot canyon, and if you keep in mind the idea of the flash flood, you have to be aware of what you're doing in the canyon, because something like this is amazing to go and visit, but you really need to think about what your environment is telling you, because you don't want to go into a canyon like that. This is Lava Falls, which is the big one on the Grand Canyon. It's always rated a 10. It tends to be the center point. After Lava Falls, the trip kind of chills a little bit. The river slows down, people start to relax. It's not quite as much work, but it's also a chance to hang out and have fun. This is just kind of playing in camp one day, and it's one of my favorite photos for no reason I can particularly think of. Finally, as we come to the end of the canyon, all of that gear that we brought has to come back out, and so it's a complete pack it in, pack it out kind of thing. The nice thing about this kind of this sort of mindset is that the Grand Canyon is an amazingly clean resource, and it will be available for all of us for many, many years to come. Thank you.